Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. Buckle up, as it's a long one, and don't forget to listen to the end of the story to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and please like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment.
I, 19 male, have a younger sister called Cassidy, 16 female. I have more younger siblings, but this concerns Cassidy. Cassidy is the person my dad blames for his divorce from my mother. He introduced his mistress to her when she was 10. She was his favorite kid, and she told our mom. They split. He's never forgiven her since. My mom later married a man called Andy when Cass was 15. Andy is a prick, and he would constantly pick fights with Cass. This situation resulted in Cassidy having to move halfway across the country to live with our dad in London. Dad's wife, Sam, is also awful, the mistress he later married, and she hates the fact that he has other kids because that means he can't give his full attention to her and her kids. I try my best to keep up with Cassidy and make sure she's okay, but I live in Scotland for university. Train tickets for me to visit her, or vice versa, are expensive as hell, and I'm in no position to keep paying for them. I considered having her move in with me since I have a flat with my boyfriend, but the education system in England and Scotland is slightly different exams, so I don't know how well she'll do, considering all the other disruption in her life. Anyway, as I suspected, my dad is doing a crap job of raising Cassidy. He allows his wife to pick on her constantly. His stepkids are nasty to her, and she's having a miserable time there. He's also been restricting her access to her phone, that I pay for, by the way, because he doesn't want her to tell me about what goes on in that house. It all came to a head last week when she ran away and only reappeared yesterday. She's refusing to tell anyone where she went, but it's obvious that this situation can't continue. My dad said that he was going to send her to live with me, which I was okay with, but I didn't think it was the right decision for her. She also doesn't want to move up to Scotland either. I decided to call up my dad's parents, and they've offered to take Cassidy. They live just outside of London, and were also so pissed that they've said they were cutting my dad from the will. They're also disinheriting my half-siblings from his wife, Sam, and giving all of that to Cassidy as compensation for the trauma he's caused her. It's a lot of money that'll definitely set her up, which I think is great because she deserves it. My father is infuriated right now. He said that sending Cass to live with me was the right choice for her, since we get along really well, and she isn't that close to our grandparents. But I think they'll be better equipped to look after her than me. It also saves the disruption of having another big move in such a short amount of time for her. He said that I knew his parents would disinherit him, which is true. They've threatened it before, and he thinks I snitched to make sure it would happen. Am I the a-hole? OP's father is a cheater and a bad father, and his mistress should be thankful for Cassidy, because without her, she wouldn't be married. OP is 19. OP is not an adult, and it's absurd his dad thinks he is the solution. Dad's behavior got him removed from the will, not OP. OP was right to contact them, as OP was the only person prior to his grandparents who apparently cared about OP's sister. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. You need to disentangle a few things here. Your grandparents' decision with their money and belongings are exclusively theirs to make. You did not get your dad removed from their will. His actions and your grandparents' decision did that. This is especially true if they've threatened to remove him from their will in the past. Your father sounds like a piece of work if he blames his daughter and not his infidelity for his divorce. You may have asked your grandparents to take your sister, but you did so because you thought that it was best for her, especially in light of her having run away from home. I do hope that you've at least discussed this with her, because otherwise, you're just setting her up for another round of trouble. So, in brief, your dad is a massive, self-absorbed a-hole who behaves terribly. Then, when he faces consequences of his behavior, he blames his own children for snitching. You're not the a-hole. Your dad needs to grow up and stop this adolescent behavior. Just for the record, your mom is an a-hole too for allowing her new guy to run her minor child out of her home. Not the a-hole. The dad here sure likes blaming others when he experiences consequences for his crappy choices and behaviors, huh? Just as Cassidy did not cause the split between him and OP's mom, his affair did that. So too did OP acting in Cassidy's best interest not cause him to be disinherited. His years of aggression and neglect did that. Bonus a-hole points to the mistress for going shocked Pikachu over the guy with kids having to be involved with said kids. They deserve each other, but hopefully all the children can escape from their talons and never look back. Classic fooled around and found out right here. Update. It's been a tough time. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my father found out about the inheritance. So instead of letting Cassidy go live with our grandparents peacefully, he dug his heels in and refused to let her leave his house. When our father discovered that our grandparents planned to disinherit him and his wife's children in favor of Cassidy, he went ballistic. He demanded that Cassidy stay with him, seeing her as his ticket back into the will. He made it clear that he wasn't going to lose out on a significant fortune, even if it meant keeping Cassidy in a toxic environment. Our grandparents, having learned the full extent of Cassidy's mistreatment, were outraged. They immediately filed for custody, determined to rescue her from the aggressive household. What followed was an intense legal battle. The custody fight has been brutal. My father has been throwing every dirty trick he can think of to undermine our grandparents, accusing them of being too old and unfit to care for a teenager. Meanwhile, our grandparents have gathered testimonies and evidence to prove that Cassidy's well-being is in serious jeopardy if she remains with my father and his wife. In the midst of this legal storm, Cassidy has been caught in the crossfire. She's been forced to testify about the aggression, recounting painful details that no child should ever have to relive. Every court session is a fresh wound for her, but she's been incredibly brave, determined to escape the nightmare she's been living in. As for me, my relationship with my father has completely disintegrated. He's disowned me, blaming me for the entire mess. According to him, I'm the one who turned his parents against him and orchestrated this whole situation to ruin his life. The irony of it all is that he fails to see that his own actions have led to this point. Our last confrontation was the final nail in the coffin. He called me, furious, accusing me of betrayal. "You're no son of mine," he spat. "You've destroyed this family." I tried to reason with him, to make him see that Cassidy's well-being should be our priority, but he was beyond listening. His obsession with the inheritance and his vendetta against me have clouded any semblance of a rational thought. The court's final decision is still pending, but things are looking hopeful. Our grandparents' lawyer has built a strong case, and the judge seems to be leaning in their favor. But the wait is excruciating, and the stress is overwhelming for all of us. Despite the turmoil, I remain steadfast in my support for Cassidy. She's been through hell, but she's a fighter. Our grandparents are her best chance at a stable, loving environment, and I will do everything in my power to ensure she gets that. So, long story short, wife found out she was pregnant after a year plus of trying. Been a long roller coaster of various treatments, but the docs finally figured out which one was needed, and it worked on the first round. Her best friend from childhood now wants to get pregnant so they can go through the process together and have kids the same age. She's a lesbian and up until earlier this year was in a long-term relationship. The catch is, she and my wife apparently want me to be the father of that child also. Reasoning: get things moving quickly rather than go the IVF route, and also because they like the idea of the possible kids being related. Her friend has been a constant presence in our lives since I've known my wife, 15 years or so now, and I've basically just accepted it at this point. We've all also fooled around occasionally, when she was married. So the wife is okay with the impregnation aspect of it. Several years ago, her and her partner wanted to have a child, and they wanted me to be the donor via the IVF method for similar reasons. I thought that was a little weird then, and my wife didn't want kids at that time, so was not really on board either. Not really sure why they never went through with it, using a S-bank, but they never did, and I don't know the details. She's got a good long-term job with the county and can support herself. After her divorce, she's been living in one of my rental properties, and we've had no issues with rent or weird stuff in that regard. Financially, I can support having a child of our own, plus this other kid if it ever came down to it. My lawyer friend pointed out that this method I would be liable for support if for some reason went into the courtroom. The HBO show Big Love comes to mind when I'm trying to compress all the details. I'm not sure I want to essentially have a sister wife. Not to mention, it's just overall a weird situation. The relationship with my wife won't fall apart if I say no, so not worried about that. I've had to put my foot down in the past when involving her friend in things, And the wife usually at least has the presence of mind to realize having a third wheel around isn't always fun. Do I want another child that is actually mine around? How much would I have to be involved? I have no idea. She claims she would be capable of being a single parent. I suspect we'll end up being some quasi-poly couple. Financially? No problem. Her friend is attractive, so no problem in that regard either. Involving the family. Talk to mine about it, and they are oddly enough in favor. My mom brought up an interesting point. We're all in our mid-30s and not getting any younger. And with the current climate how it is, nothing seems crazy. So, would just like to hear some different opinions and what the community thinks, or if anyone was in a similar situation. Don't do it. This is a train wreck waiting to happen. You may be expected to father both children, and I feel that will tear you and your wife apart. I don't think your wife understands that it is a possibility, or how her future self might feel about it. My wife and I are currently just entering our third trimester with our first child. On its face, this should be the absolute happiest time of our lives and our immediate family, as this is the first grandchild for both sides of our family. Part of this process is the baby shower, which again, on its face, should be very straightforward. I was out of town on a work trip this week when my wife called me before work, bawling her eyes out because she had gotten into an argument with her sister, who was throwing the baby shower, over a game. The sister had planned to play the baby food game, still hazy on what exactly this is, and my wife doesn't want to play it. My wife asked her not to play that game, and the sister told her she already had all the materials, and she could just sit it out if she didn't want to play. Understanding my wife's emotions are a bit high right now with the pregnancy, I helped calm her down over the phone, knowing I would be home that evening. I got home yesterday and figured the best path here would be to try to talk to my mother-in-law and see if she could help mediate this and find a compromise. I called my mother-in-law and she was definitely resistant to it. She sides with the sister and thinks that my wife is being too bossy and rude because the shower is a present and rejecting any part of it is a slap in the face. I tried to explain the emotions part and she wasn't really accepting that. I asked her if she could talk to the sister and tell her I would even pay for whatever materials she invested in the game, so she wouldn't be out any money. Just if we could find another game to play. This really should not be a big deal at all. My mother-in-law was on board with this and said she would help work it out. I really thought that was the end of it. This morning, I was woken up to a call from my mother-in-law. She was hysterical and crying about how everything was so messed up, and that my sister-in-law is now seriously depressed and almost didn't go to work because of how my wife was treating her like dirt and being bossy with her. She went on for about 5 minutes straight about all kinds of family issues I didn't really even know were a problem, all culminating with this dumb baby shower game. I told my mother-in-law I was clearly not qualified to handle this and needed to think of a way we could get the whole family together to discuss these issues, because this was clearly much larger than just a baby shower game. I am now at an utter loss and don't even know where to turn. My wife and her whole family are very classic Midwesterners that like to just shove issues down and not acknowledge them. And when they finally do, it's a ticking time bomb of shouting and crying. I am highly certain a suggestion of a counselor or therapy would be met with anger and more emotions. I just don't know where to turn at this point, and hope that maybe some stranger on the internet from 1,000 foot above can help offer some advice on a good path forward. Edit. After my wife got home, I sat down and told her everything that happened and talked through some options. I mentioned the potentially getting a pastor to sit down with the family and discuss feelings option, and she seemed a bit open to it. She is going to sleep on it and figure out her best path forward. The issue is not the baby shower. Sister-in-law could care less. What is at stake here is dominance. Sister-in-law wants to assert dominance and have it her way. If you let sister-in-law win, then you will be controlled with the same behavior in the future and will be met with hostile behaviors later on. If you do not resist, you will face hostility now and get into a smear campaign, guilt tripping, etc. There is no winning move on the sister-in-law front. However, if you let sister-in-law win, you betray your wife. If you support your wife, you send her a strong signal. The best option is to support your wife and to not give in to pressure. Pay for the material, Just give the money by wire transfer or something similar and make sure there is more than needed. Send a message that your wife is not feeling well. Cancel the baby shower. Do not explain anything. The same message over and over. Wife unwell, no baby shower, she has to rest. 20 times if needed. No other explanation is needed. Broken record. Never accept anything from your wife's family, as it will be used against you. You will regret, with tears, anything you accept. Food, gifts, parties, help. Anything will be weaponized. In any case, you will have to move or shut down those behaviors for good. So far, sister-in-law has the upper hand, as she put your mother-in-law on her side, and a part of the family too. You have to react clearly and strongly. Pick your sister-in-law or your wife. This is not about a baby shower. My girlfriend and I have been together roughly 2 years and have been talking about getting married, buying a house, and starting a family, etc. When we first started having these talks about a year ago, my girlfriend kept mentioning how much she loved the diamond in my mom's engagement ring and wanted one like that. It's quite a unique shape and size. I started doing some research and even took my mom with me to a custom jewelry designer and got some quotes and started saving. A few days ago, my girlfriend asked me when she'd be getting my mom's ring because she wants to see if it would fit her and had some ideas for a new setting. I explained that she wouldn't be getting my mom's ring, but that I had something in the works for when the time was right. My girlfriend started crying and yelling at me that she's made it clear she wants my mom's ring, not a replica knockoff. After a very long back and forth, she asked if I had even asked my mom for the ring, and I replied no. She told me that I should because it's rightfully hers. Seeing as I'm the eldest of 2 boys and my mom has no daughters to pass the ring down to. So the next day I went to my parents and explained the situation and asked for my mom's ring. She said no. She said she still wears the ring and doesn't plan to part with it anytime soon. I said I understood, but asked who the ring would be passed down to eventually, and she said she hadn't thought about it yet. I asked her to take the night to think about it and get back to me, because if it was eventually going to be mine, then why wait and cause my girlfriend all this heartache, right? I got home without the ring, and my girlfriend had another meltdown. She kept asking why my mom hates her and doesn't want her to be happy or welcome her into the family. I tried to say this wasn't the case, but my girlfriend wouldn't listen. This morning I called my mom to ask if she'd thought about the ring anymore, and she's still saying no, for the same reasons she gave me yesterday, including who it would get passed down to. She doesn't know. My girlfriend overheard the phone call and started calling my mom a selfish, controlling bee, so I hung up quickly. After going on a rant about how my mom is using this ring to control us, girlfriend has told me that if my mom doesn't hand over the ring for me to propose, then we're done. I tried to sell girlfriend on a different ring with a similar diamond, but she's not budging. I'm at a loss as to what to do here. I love my mom and understand it's her ring, but I love my girlfriend too, and don't want this to be the thing that breaks us up. Help! So, your girlfriend thinks the ring that's still on your very much alive mother's finger, who's apparently still married to the man who gave her the ring, is hers. In what universe do things work that way? I know I will inherit my parents' house when they eventually pass away, but that isn't a reason to kick them out now, because it will be rightfully mine one day. She's absolutely crazy. I don't know why this upsets me so much, but it makes me angry just reading this. The audacity to claim something that has a significant emotional value to the original owners, who have never even talked about passing it down. I just can't bend my mind around this. Edit. Yeah, it's over with the girlfriend. While I was seeking advice here, she went to work, except she didn't. My dad called me to say girlfriend was there, demanding to be let in and have the ring. He said that they were getting ready to call the police because she was refusing to leave and causing a scene in their front yard. I called her and asked what she was doing. She lied and said my mom had called her with a change of heart and decided to give her the ring after all, so she was there collecting it. I asked her to leave. She went off, but finally left. She came home, I'm working from home at the moment, and started going off at me for promising her my mom's ring and how she's going to look like a fool in front of all of her friends because she's told them she was getting my mom's ring. I apologized for the confusion, but said I didn't recall promising her the ring at all. I then took what one commenter said and asked why she specifically wanted my mom's ring. She tried to say because I promised it to her. I stood my ground and said I didn't. She mentioned something about it being the symbol of the matriarch of the family, and as she was going to be that, it should be with her. This made me uncomfortable, like she was trying to replace or erase my mom. So I made it clear that she would not be getting my mom's ring or any ring at this stage. She started crying that I didn't love her and wasted 2 years of her life. I said if she felt like that, it's best we break up, and she left to her best friend's place. I called my mom, but she wasn't in the mood to talk. I asked my dad to apologize to her for me and give her a hug and to let me know when I could come around in person. I've been getting texts from my girlfriend and her best friend, ranging from love to extreme hatred. I haven't replied to any. Obviously, this is a short summary of the chaos that has been my day, but I thank you all for opening my eyes to girlfriend's entitlement. Update. In the past week, she has been bombarding me with texts and calls, even when all I reply to her was "stop" or "please stop." Yesterday, she showed up at my parents' house, yelling and crying out the front, and tried to guilt my mom into giving her the ring again. My parents called the police, but all the police did was give her a warning and told her to leave. A few hours later, she sent me a picture of a positive pregnancy test on a white counter. As you can imagine, there was some back and forth between us. I asked her to send me a picture of her holding the positive test. She called me an a-hole and said I better be ready to be poor for the next 18 years because she's going to take all my money for child support. I tried to play it off as though I was just in shock, but in all honesty, the picture of the test looked very generic. I even Googled positive pregnancy test, and it looks exactly like the one from the image that comes up. She maintains that she took the test at her friend's, and it's their bathroom countertop. I asked if she'd come over and take a test with me in the bathroom, and she called me a pervert and said she didn't want to have a pervert's baby and would be taking care of the issue as soon as possible. I tried to make out like I just wanted to relive the moment in seeing the test turn positive with her, but she's not replied back to me since. I messaged her friend, whose house she claimed to be at, but her friend said ex-girlfriend wasn't there, wasn't talking to her, and that she, friend, doesn't know anything about any pregnancy. I reached out to her mom, but her mom didn't know we'd broken up and says she hasn't seen her. I had a pretty blunt conversation with her mom about the past 2 weeks, and her mom said, "Well, you created this mess, you clean it up." Without giving in to her demands of getting back together, proposing to her with my mom's ring, and/or accepting she's pregnant without definitive proof, I see with my own eyes. How do I go about this? Update 2. I'm gonna try and keep this super short. After a while, they all had the same idea, so it was clear what I needed and intended to do. However, after not hearing from her for 2 days, she broke into my parents' house while only my mom was home. While being arrested, she claimed my mom stole her ex's ring. My mom showed the police her wedding photo and then briefly explained what had been going on. They called me to confirm, and of course I did. The police asked me if she had any alcohol or D problems because she was intoxicated. I said that was interesting because she told me she was pregnant with my kid, but that she'd not shown any signs of an addiction while with me. The police officer did me a solid and took this information back and told ex-girlfriend he'd be reporting her to family services for being intoxicated while pregnant. After initially trying to blame me and my parents for her behavior, she finally caved and said she wasn't pregnant and she was just trying to get back at me. My parents have been awarded a restraining order. I'm in the process of obtaining one too. I feel bad that it's gotten to this stage, and it appears this has caused her to have a breakdown. I loved her for 2 years, so it's kind of hard to just walk away. But I keep going back to how traumatic this has been for my parents, specifically my mom. She's that terrified. She doesn't want to be home alone and has been looking to getting home security cameras, which I've offered to pay for.